Have you ever really stopped to think about it? You type a website address into your browser, you hit enter, and poof, the site just appears. It feels like magic, right? Well, it's not. And behind that one simple action is one of the most important and yet totally invisible systems that powers the entire internet.
Okay, so let's get right into it. On one side, you have something that makes sense to us, a simple name like google.com, but on the other side, you have what computers understand, this long string of numbers called an IP address. They're basically speaking two completely different languages. So how on earth do they talk to each other?
Well, they do it through a translator, a system that's often called the Internet's invisible phone book. So in this first part, we're going to pull back the curtain and really get to the core of how this whole thing works.
And that system has a name. It's called DNS, which stands for Domain Name System. And its main job, its whole purpose, is actually pretty simple, but absolutely essential. It takes that website name you type in and translates it into the numerical IP address that a computer needs to find that site on the internet.
You know, the best way to wrap your head around this is with an analogy you're already using every single day, right on the phone that's probably in your pocket. So let's break down how this digital phone book really operates.
It's kind of wild how perfectly this analogy lines up. Think about it. You don't memorize your best friend's phone number, right? You just know their name. Well, in the internet world, that contact name is the domain name. The actual number your phone dials, that's the IP address. And that whole contact list on your phone that connects the name to the number, yep, that's the DNS. It's that simple.
So why is this so critical? I mean, really, why do we even need it? Well, imagine for a second if you had to memorize a dozen different IP addresses just to check your email or watch a video. It would be a nightmare. DNS makes browsing easy. It also gives websites a ton of flexibility. They can change their server's IP address anytime they want, and you never even know. The whole system is the foundation for the scalable, secure, and easy-to-use internet we all know.
Okay, now for the really cool part. Let's actually follow a single request you make online and see the incredible high-speed detective story that unfolds in the background every single time you click a link.
The moment you hit enter, this amazing chain reaction kicks off. First, your browser quickly checks its own memory, its cache, to see if it's been there recently. If not, it asks your computer's operating system. Then it asks your router. Still no luck? Okay, now the real journey begins. Your computer contacts what's called a DNS resolver. Think of it as a helpful librarian. That resolver first asks a root server, hey, where do I find information about anything ending in .com? The root server points it to the TLD, or top-level domain server. The resolver then asks that TLD server, okay, great, where can I find google.com? That server points it to the final stop, Google's very own authoritative server, which gives the definitive final IP address. Your browser finally gets that number, and boom, a connection is made.
And here is the absolute magic of the internet. That entire multi-step, globe-spanning journey we just described, the whole thing happens, on average, in just a few milliseconds. It's this incredibly complex dance that's so ridiculously fast you never even notice it's happening at all.
But you know, this phone book is way more sophisticated than just a simple list of names and numbers. A single entry inside can hold all different kinds of information, and each one has a very specific job to do.
Okay, so the most common one is the A record. A just stands for address. This is the main entry, the bread and butter of the whole DNS phone book. It's the one that directly connects a domain name to its primary numerical IP address. Simple as that.
Then you have something called a CNAME record. Think of this as just a nickname or an alias. So for example, it can tell the internet that www.google.com is just another name for the main google.com. That way, they both end up going to the exact same place. It's super useful.
And what about email? How does your message know where to go when you send it? Well, that's where the MX record comes in. MX stands for Mail Exchange, and it's basically the specific mailing address for a domain. It tells the Internet's postal service exactly which server is in charge of catching all the incoming emails.
Hey, remember how your browser checks its cache first to speed things up? The TTL, or time to live, is what makes that possible. It's basically an expiration date stamped on a DNS record. It tells your browser how long it should remember an IP address before it has to go through that whole lookup process again. This one little setting is a huge reason your daily browsing feels so snappy.
Of course, we've all been there. You know your internet is working, but a website just won't load. More often than not, the phone book is the one to blame. So let's take a look at what happens when it all goes wrong. Oh yeah, this one.
this familiar and super frustrating message. It looks like a bunch of technical gobbledygook, but it's actually telling you a very specific story. The DNS search failed, and it's given up.
So what does this actually mean? Let's break it down. DNS probe means your browser sent out a search party. Finished NX domain means that search party came back empty-handed. NX domain literally means non-existent domain. The phonebook lookup couldn't find an entry. Now this can happen for a bunch of reasons. Maybe your internet provider's DNS server is down, or maybe the website owner just forgot to renew their domain name. It could even be a simple typo. But the bottom line is that name to number translation just failed.
But here's where DNS gets really, really smart. It's not just about finding a number, it's about finding the best number. For a massive global service like Google, DNS doesn't just give you one IP address, it actually looks at your location and intelligently sends you to the server that is physically closest to you. This is called geo-based routing, and it's a huge part of why massive websites still feel incredibly fast no matter where you are in the world.
So, with all this happening, is any of it secure? Well, by default, not really. Those DNS requests are sent out in plain text, which means your internet provider can see a list of every single website you visit. And that's exactly why new standards like DNS over HTTPS, or DOH, are becoming so important. They wrap your phonebook lookups in a layer of encryption, keeping your browsing history private.
So, when you put it all together, it's pretty clear. DNS is the invisible, unsung hero of the modern internet. It's this tireless translator working behind the scenes, turning the simple names we can all remember into the complex numbers computers need, and it makes the entire digital world accessible to all of us.
This whole system is just one of many hidden layers that makes our technology feel so seamless. And it kind of leaves you with a question to think about. If DNS really is the internet's phone book, what other invisible systems are silently guiding your digital life?